Hello, everyone. Sarah Barker with Connect Our Elders, and today is another Empowering Aging podcast. Big thanks to our sponsor, Retirement Genius, all things alternative funding solutions for private care. Today we have with us Zale Dowlen, who is an estate planning attorney and a retirement professional, helping people figure out how to live their best life and be the heroes that they already are. Zale, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it.
So I have heard you speak, and I know that you are a phenomenal gentleman. And at the Senior Care Sales Solutions Academy in Nashville, you left a very lasting impact on the students just because of your approach to the work that you do. So would you mind sharing with the audience about your background? And I'd also like for you to share how you have in your description that you are a kingdom-driven estate planning attorney.
Sure. So my background is, I am an attorney, and for a lot of attorneys, the idea of being an attorney is that you must be in the courtroom. And COVID sort of broke that for me and forced me to look at what I really wanted to do, who I really wanted to serve. Where that plays into my background is I have before being an attorney, I worked for several major insurance companies. Before that, I was really in retail and ministry. And so when I put all of that together and really was forced to look at how that worked together, how my education, how my current status in life and all that really worked together. The people, it was for me, it was if the Lord, fate, whatever you want to say, was bringing people in that I really enjoyed serving. Right. So these years of being in litigation and just all the awful ins and outs of that and coming at that from a serving mindset, a lot of times the court appointed clients for me that weren't necessarily clients that I or anybody would choose. And so that was a lot of a difficulty that came out of that. And so whenever it really dawned on me that I could take everything that I had, all the tools in my toolbox, and actually choose the clients that I work with, choose the clients that I serve, and have the ability to say no to folks that just aren't a good fit, folks that aren't going to listen, folks that aren't going to resonate with me. And so all of that came together as to how I was able to serve people. And, I also figured out that, there's sometimes in our life that we have to take the work that comes along. And there's sometimes in our life where we've made good choices and we can put all that together and actually choose the work that we do and the people that we work with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Zale, it says in your profile, right, you take a holistic approach because you have the attorney side of you, right, the estate planning, but then you have this retirement planning, insurance background as well.
Right.
So, holistic is a word that's used pretty frequently, but what do you mean when you say you do holistic planning?
Sure. And you also asked earlier about as far as working from a kingdom perspective, that's a part of it. So as I was looking at the people that I like to serve and the area that I like to serve in, which is working with planning, whether it's typically that winds up either being young families or that winds up being folks who, have finally been forced into the idea of needing to do some estate planning and that sort of thing. I looked at that and the typical model on that, the typical estate planning attorney, they're all looking for the same client that a lot of the financial advisors are looking for, which are the high net worth folks. Well, I can certainly walk in those circles, but I don't resonate with those folks as much as I do just your common folks.
Mm-hmm.
And which are the same folks who are typically so underserved.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at doing estate planning for that, and that resonates with some and doesn't with others. But really the bigger need for those folks is often, what does retirement look like? What does Social Security look like? Is there a way that they can provide for long-term care and that sort of thing? And so I really dug into what it meant to not only have a law license, but also have a license for annuities, long-term care, and that sort of thing. I added that. And there's some disclosures that come with that, and then everybody gets it. And so for some folks, for those ideal clients, I can be the one-stop shop whenever it comes to retirement planning, even when it comes to Medicaid planning. You know, as an attorney, I had very few tools to be able to help folks in crisis Medicare planning. Now, not only do I have all the tools that I need, but I'm very comfortable with being able to have the answers. And so that's where the holistic part of it comes in, because when you've got folks who are in the insurance space and in the advising space and in the legal space, and a lot of times there's not a whole lot of interplay between those. You know, I've seen wills that tried to do things that the attorney should have known better, that it just couldn't do because that's what you did with a life insurance beneficiary form. I've also seen gaps where people could have had, let's say, long-term care or something along those lines. And, you know, maybe they were told that, oh, well, you know, you're too old, you don't qualify or whatever. And instead of knowing that there's other ways to deal with that. I've even had situations, because there's a legal clinic that I'm a part of. I've even had situations where people have come in with the need of, you know, how does this all work? How does what little we have left work with my spouse that's now going into a facility? How, you know, are there things that I have to do? What are the answers? And so it's nice to be able to work with everyday folks, a lot of the same folks that you work with, and being able to say, you know, here's the answers. And it's not just about law. It's about insurance, investment, retirement, but also just with a lot of what you talk about and what a lot of our friends do is being able to say, you know what, that issue that you have really needs a care coordinator. And I know several. So, you know, let's start working our way down the list and see what their workload looks like and how quickly we can bring them in. And that's been really cool to make those connections. That's been something I've really been doing over the past 6 months. And to be able to see, you know, people that I've helped with the legal side of it, right? But I can't walk into a nursing home and be able to say, you know, well, this is a good treatment, that's a good treatment, that's terrible. You know, if we want to move somebody, here's the way we put all those blocks into place to do it. But it's great to see folks walk out of my office and have those answers, and they didn't have to come from me.
So right. You have your vetted resources, right? To have their particular areas of expertise. So it sounds like you were mentioning the fact that you do the insurance side and you have these various areas of expertise yourself, right, in your toolbox. Right. Do you find that it decreases things getting lost in communication, right? Because you can do both sides of it.
Oh yeah. It does. And not only that, but as far as being a resource, even for things that I don't do, of just having a little bit of a working knowledge of those. And I'll give you an example. I'm not licensed, nor do I plan to be licensed for what's called home equity conversion mortgages, which is reverse mortgages, right? But they get discussed in my office quite a bit. I know the people that I trust, that if we're talking about heading into those, but because I handle probate as well, I've got at least 2 cases right now that so we're on the back end of that reverse mortgage. And so I at least know a bit more about how that's made, how it's put together. And so again, it kind of comes back to that holistic part of it that I just don't see a lot of people doing. You know, I see attorneys staying in their silos. I see financial advisors staying in their silos. I see insurance people and that sort of thing staying in their silos. And if some of those folks, I think, would start to break down some of those walls and understand what's going on in the other disciplines, people would simply be served better.
Because it's interconnected.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing with the audience where you practice? I do know, and also the various states in which you're licensed.
Sure. So when it comes to law, because, you know, everybody complains about, you know, the expense, or they're afraid of, you know, attorneys charge too much, whatever. Law is extremely expensive to do. And I'll give you an example here in a minute. So as far as law goes, I'm only in Tennessee. Now, when it comes to talking to people outside of Tennessee, one, they know I'm only a Tennessee attorney. Okay. But the fact that I'm an attorney, still my opinion has value as it plays in other areas. When it comes to insurance, that's Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia for now. And here's the difference. So, for example, for me to add another state as a licensed attorney is around $1,500. To add another state from an insurance perspective is 50.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just amazing to me the difference between the two. And it's, it's all this mindset that, the attorneys have all the money, so we can raise the expenses on it. And what happens is that middle class of people wind up being underserved.
So let's talk about that for a second, because that's the next question that I was thinking about, actually. Do you find that people are afraid, or they don't think that they need to do estate planning because they view their situation and say, well, I don't have a big enough estate. Like, why would I need an estate plan? Or maybe they are thinking they need to, but they're afraid to reach out to an attorney because they're thinking it's going to be a ton of money to do it.
Yes.
Okay. What
Absolutely.
would your advice be? And can you share with the audience, why? How should they know they should do an estate plan, and why they should?
Well, if you're an adult, you need an estate plan. Typically for minors, I'm just not all that concerned with that. We've got laws of intestacy and that sort of thing. Typically in those areas, it's more about, with children, it's more about, do we have special needs issues? Do we have money issues, maybe involved a trust? So, I mean, basically, if you're dealing with an adult, okay, you need some sort of estate plan. Now, estate plan and estate planning can have a lot of definitions, and there's not one that's fixed. From my perspective, it's at least having your will, your powers of attorney. If you have children at home, it's a child care power of attorney. I don't hear a lot of estate planners talking about that. I've done a lot of work and I still do a lot of work in the juvenile court world. I've actually seen that play out. So anytime I have minor or disabled children, we always have that power of attorney. So the powers of attorney, the living will and advanced care plan. And you and I have talked before, and that to me, that living will and advanced care plan for the more conservative states may be your most important document, because it lays out what you want when you can't speak for yourself. So many people, that's kind of the donut area, right? So they get caught up in the idea of, well, I'm doing just fine, and then I've graduated, and they miss that area in the middle. So for a lot of folks, that's the main thing. Now, when you've got, I guess for lack of a better term, the bluer states, that's when you need to add a trust to that. But one of the advertisements that I'm not really sure why an investment company is trying to practice law, but one of the advertisements that just blows the top of my head off says, do you need a will or a trust? Well, you always need a will. You may or may not need a trust, and that really boils down to, who do you not trust?
I remember you teaching that to the class.
Right?
Because me having, for the most part in the senior care industry, operated in California, it's been drilled into my head. You need a trust, right? If you're
because you don't trust the probate court. They take such a percentage. The bluer states are tax hungrier, so they take a percentage out of probate, and absolutely, because you don't trust the court. But in the redder states, and especially so many folks who are moving in from the bluer states to the redder states, you don't need a trust for that same reason. That doesn't mean don't have one. But, I was in a group of attorneys the other day, and we were joking about the $3,000 notebook. The $3,000 notebook is that really thick notebook where, an attorney doing a good job filled in all the information, hit the button, generated a pretty notebook. And a lot of times those are called dry trusts, because they're not funded. They never got funded. And so, I tell people all the time, a trust that has assets in it does really, really well. A trust that doesn't have assets in it, or has assets that are going to pour over into it, sometimes struggles. And I've seen them. That's the thing that's been the frustration to me, is when I have seen people be told, hey, you've got a trust, everything's taken care of. And so they think they're done. And then they're coming in to me after somebody's passed away, and now they've got checks that they can't negotiate because they weren't in the trust. There was no account for the trust. And so now they've got to go to probate court to, be able to negotiate some small checks. Now it's doable. But sometimes they have to make the choice of whether or not it works financially.
So why does that happen? If the work, how does that happen? Why? Like if the time was taken, it was paid to establish the trust, and then it's not properly carried out, meaning it doesn't get funded. Where is that mistake happening?
So I think a lot from the perspective of automobiles. A will is a Ford F-150. Okay. The trust is a really pretty Mercedes. It takes more maintenance.
Okay.
If you're not maintaining the trust, then there's a problem. And so many people are sold on the idea of, well, I've got a trust, it's all taken care of. Well, if assets aren't titled into the trust, you've got a problem.
Is that because the attorney will usually tell the individual, okay, it's all drafted, right? But now you have to go fund it. And then it just gets put on the back burner and never happens, and it's forgotten about.
Right. Yes. And some of the attorneys, so for example, getting, one of the typical things is typically if I'm doing a trust, I'll do what's called a revocable living trust. They're very easy to work with, very wash and wear. And I'll go ahead and title, if they're going to do it, we're going to go ahead and title their home into it. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to them about having bank accounts that were titled into it and all that. But I'll go ahead and do the quick claim to get it in. I've seen a lot of attorneys who they just say they don't do that. Well, I don't understand. You'll see an exhibit in a lot of them that's what's called Exhibit A, that they can reference non-titled personal property that they want to bring into the trust, and it'll just be blank. Mm-hmm. Because they never did it. Because what happens is, they went in, they gave a paralegal their information, they plopped down $3,000, they walked out with a really thick notebook. And then they thought, okay, my estate planning's done. Well, if that's the approach you're going to take, especially if you're in a red state, do a will, do your powers of attorney. And then if you're not inclined to think about it, that's fine, because that will catches everything. The trust does not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Could you share about, because you did this exercise in the academy about handwriting, and there's a reason why, right?
Sure. So one of the things that this area allows me to do, because, I really do have a heart for just ministering to people, is it allowed me to put together a notebook, which is what we went through in the academy, a notebook geared for Tennessee, but redder states, that if nothing else, right, if somebody wanted to leave that legacy of peace, but they really didn't have much to mess with, they could work through the notebook and have it all done. So one of the things in there is for Tennessee we really only see two types of wills. So the formally drafted will, which some of the online services are doing a pretty good job on that, by the way, the formally drafted will, and then the entirely handwritten will. It's called holographic. So if you're in a state that recognizes holographic wills, it's truly as simple as writing out what you want all in your handwriting and signing it. I recommend dating it. Some may require dating. Tennessee does not require dating. It doesn't require a notary. It doesn't require a couple of witnesses when you do it. Now, it does require for people to be able to recognize your handwriting. And one of the challenges for holographic wills in this day and time is so many people, text and that sort of thing that, can somebody actually recognize mama's handwriting? But it's as simple as that. And so, for somebody who really wanted to have a good, solid, basic estate planning package, and earlier we talked about ideal client profile. Most of my ideal clients are do-it-yourselfers anyway. They always have. There's plenty of places. You really want to look state specific. This is not a federal thing, but there's plenty of places who do a good job with online document preparation. It used to not be that way. It used to be very hit or miss, especially if you walked out to the, maybe the office supply store and picked up the do-it-yourself will kit. If they're not state specific, that's a problem.
Okay.
But if they
and
are
also, would you advise too that it depends on which state the individual lives? Like, is that something somebody in California would want to do versus?
Yes. So all of these laws are state specific. So when it comes to laws, let me back up just a second. When it comes to laws, there are sometimes that we look at laws that are federal, and those get all the headlines and that sort of thing. But that's really a very small segment of what affects your life. majority of what affects your life are state laws. And so what we're talking about are state laws. Now you can wander into little niche areas, like, for example, the VA, the Veterans Administration, Veteran Affairs system, has its own healthcare power of attorney and all of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just your general wills, your general power of attorney, living will, and advanced care plan. Those are going to be state specific. So if you're going to do it yourself, just pay attention to wherever that's coming from, whether it's an attorney, online, or whatever. Is so long as it's state specific, you're probably in pretty good shape.
What is your advice about reviewing the planning?
Oh, so whenever anybody goes through planning with me, one of my disclaimer forms is that they agree that they're going to look at their basic planning every year.
Every year, okay.
Yeah. Now, if you have a trust, you may want to look at it a little bit more frequently than that, especially if there's any life changes and that sort of thing. So first of all, every year, I have a recurring calendar item for me to just go back January 1st, look at all my beneficiary forms, look at my estate plan, look at all of that. And, and there was at least one time where I got a bit of a surprise. Life had changed and I had forgotten somebody was on a beneficiary form, and I made quick work to change that. But, one of the interesting things in doing probate work is often what's called unintended consequences. And so had I not paid attention to that, my unintended consequence could have been somebody was getting a lot of money that I wasn't doing life with anymore. And I've seen that. So, but there's that, which I think should be the regular thing, but also new birth, marriage, move, any of those things, you need to go back and look at it. Doesn't mean that they need to be changed, but you need to go back and look at it. Now, more and more financial institutions are getting a bit squirrely about powers of attorney that are over a couple of years old. So that may be one of those things where every 2 years you want to go through, not only look at your power of attorney. So generally that's the financial side of it, but update it.
Do you find that many people don't?
Oh, yeah.
Consistently review their documents? And so you've already shared some of the things that can happen if that does not happen, the review process. So if you want to spend a couple minutes urging our audience and reiterating the importance of reviewing your planning.
Sure. So, and that may even be where, I think the real value of finding an attorney that you trust, even if it's a matter of just looking through it. Now, some of them, they're not going to look through. Let's say you did an online document prep. They're not necessarily going to want to look through somebody else's work. Keep looking, okay? Because there's plenty of attorneys, and especially ones that pay attention to that, okay? So, just having somebody go through all of those, and please don't rely on your insurance or your financial advisor to give you legal advice, okay? They know things, but typically when they know things, it applies to all 50 states, not the state that you're living in, okay? But pay attention to those unintended consequences. So, for example, most bank accounts are joint right of survivorship. Okay. So when mama puts Junior on the bank account and then says, okay, well, I want Junior to be my executor as well. And so I'm going to put Junior on the account because Junior's executor, Junior's my power of attorney, can pay all my bills. And then whenever I pass away, I want Junior. Let's say that I've had this. Let's say that they sold their house, they put everything into the checking account, went into a facility, assisted living or nursing, and then passed away. They went ahead and graduated, right? The will matured, and then they thought that all of that money that was in that checking account was simply a part of their estate that would be divided between Junior and Junior's other siblings. Well, the unintended consequence of that is that account is typically a joint right of survivorship account, and all of that goes to Junior.
Oh.
So that's an area of unintended consequences. I've got one case where folks went through a lot of planning, and they had a trust, they funded the trust, they did everything right up to that point. And then they got a little sideways with some folks, decided they wanted other people to be their beneficiaries. So they took it upon themselves to now write a document that they thought was going to change their trust. Well, it didn't change their trust. So the unintended consequences are that those folks that they wanted to give a lot of money to don't get any money because for whatever reason they did it right on the front end. They took the do-it-yourself approach on the back end. They did it so well on the front end that the front end survived.
Okay.
And what they tried to change didn't.
Okay.
So let me hit on one other thing real quick. So I want to hit on a quick.
Oh, we have plenty of time, Zale, please.
Great. So I see it all the time of people who, and I finally got to a point, as much as I want to help them, I finally got to a point where I just told them, I'm just not doing that, is where people come in and they say, well, I want to quit claim my house to a relative. So either they'll want to do an outright quit claim or they'll do a quit claim to bring them on. Okay. So there's a few issues there. First of all, it creates a tax issue where you've got a gift that they need to deal with their tax professional on, but also now the person loses some tax benefits. Let's say if it was an only kid and they were going to, they're going to inherit the home, they actually lose a tax benefit for doing that, right? We've got some of them, and I'm sure you see it all the time, that say, well, I'm going to quit claim this house out so that if ever I have to go on Medicaid, it won't be there. Well, there's a 5-year clawback on that. So they may find out that just really didn't work the way that they wanted to. But probably the scariest part is whenever they quit claim, especially a child, onto the house, is now it subjects that house to the child's creditors.
Okay.
Who could attach to it. And so at no point, from my perspective, at no point is doing that quit claim estate planning.
Okay.
Estate planning is sitting down and talking with somebody about really what you want to try to do and how do you get there. And is it something that you're willing to pay for or not? Or is there a way to possibly try to do it on your own?
Okay. Do you find, because something that is a part of your philosophy, who you are, your business, is live well and be remembered as the hero you already are.
Right.
So many times with estate planning, we're thinking the end,
Right.
But based on the fact that that's part of your philosophy, do you find that estate planning is really about identifying how you're wanting to live now, having a peace of mind that your wishes are going to be carried out? How do you want to be remembered? All of what you say in that statement.
Right. I mean, I think it's all of that. It's if you kind of want to work your way backward, it's once you graduated, it's being remembered for the person that you are and not leaving a train wreck. That's part of it. But the living well is how you lead up to that, and that's where the retirement planning and all of that sort of thing come in, is how did you really exemplify to the rest of your family? What was the model that you gave them of retirement years, of aging with grace, of putting things in order, of trying to set up the next generations for really that legacy? So it's more than just what would you like your tombstone to look like? It's how are you going to be remembered?
And what legacy are you leaving?
Right. What legacy are you leaving? Which includes while you're still breathing. You put things in order so that maybe you thought far enough ahead to have your advanced care plan and long-term care insurance so that you didn't completely deplete the financial legacy. You're leaving a spouse, you're leaving the kids, that you didn't leave some of the messes, some of the stress of, what do we do now? And we touched on it earlier. One of the things with me and I figured out with my practice is that I do practice from a kingdom perspective. I do practice from my faith perspective. And I tell people all the time, the ultimate in estate planning is having that relationship right.
I love it.
So that whenever people are at the nursing home, at the funeral home, they're not wondering while they're eating the potato salad. I'm in the South. While they're eating that potato salad of what happened to mama, what happened to daddy. So it's not just about the fact that whether or not they're fighting over the old sofa in the living room. It's them having a peace of mind about what's going on with you, and then it just leaves it up to them to figure out where to go from here. And hopefully you have laid a good foundation for that. Hopefully you have put things in order for them to be able to work from that, because we all work from the templates of those who went before us. And sometimes they're good templates, and sometimes we have to smash them. But we all work from those templates and have to deal with them. And so what kind of template, what kind of example are you leaving?
I love that, Zale. Let's spend a bit of time on the Advanced Healthcare Directive, right? And the importance to have an openness to talk about our own mortality, so that way we don't leave our loved ones guessing what the right decision might be if we find ourselves lacking capacity, right? To make decisions. Right.
So that's an area of my documents that I have worked very hard on. That's the one area where, when I look at it, I have yet to see any other that is more comprehensive. And it's conversations like this. It's conversations with some of our mutual friends who are in that caregiving space of, what worked well on other documents, what needs to be added, and being very mindful about that. So, for example, on my advanced care plan, and whenever I take somebody through the journey of getting to the end where the documents are done and they can breathe a sigh of relief and all of that, typically there's some laughter. It's a very heavy topic, but typically there's some laughter and joking back and forth in that. So in my advanced care plan, the very last question that they answer, because I don't try to do that ahead of time, they answer it at signing. But one of the very last questions is, when it starts out and says, typically in these scenarios, driving can be an issue as we age. Therefore, going forward, if those issues come up, and they have check boxes, and A is, I would like the person named on this advanced care plan to start that conversation with me if there need to be evaluations and that sort of thing. Or B, I'm just going to wander around someday and wonder where my keys went. And everybody gets a big laugh out of it, but they get it. And so I'm constantly, even especially when I brought healthcare workers through, and they've seen and they've actually wanted places to add on there. If I have special instructions about dementia care, Alzheimer's care, or, what facility I'd rather you bury me than put me in, that sort of thing. All of that's just gone into it.
So it sounds like you're able to facilitate those conversations by, taking a lighter approach to it, because that is, I've heard for years from attorneys, or just in general from the industry, that's one of the biggest barriers to people doing this planning, is that it forces them to have to think about their own mortality. But we have to figure out a way to open people up to have these conversations.
Right.
For themselves and their family, right? So their family doesn't have to question for the rest of their lives whether or not they made the right decision for mom or dad.
Right.
We have a comment. So previously, my good friend, Patrick Kagan, great stuff, Sarah, keep up the great work. Thank you, Patrick. And Adam, open talks around mortality need to come from a place of empathy and curiosity. It's really a hard place to sit and talk on. Absolutely. Right. Oh, he commented again. Fantastic. Love this conversation and the contribution happening here. Thank you so much, Adam. So, Zale, let's move into more of a personal. So, would you mind sharing, what is your deeper why behind the work that you're doing?
The deeper why is really being able to meet people where they are, and take the tools that I have today and being able to help them. It's also, you and I have talked before about how are we in this care space and also provide for our families. Okay. And so it has put me in a position to where I can reasonably provide for my family, bringing really the two disciplines together of reasonably being able to provide for my family while helping others at the same time. And I say that coming from a background where, before COVID, a lot of the work that I did was in court, court-appointed cases, and a lot of it had to do with child welfare cases. So those were something that I really resonated with, but they didn't pay well. They didn't fit well with the business model. There were certain things that we know from the business world about, creating recurring revenues and all that sort of thing that I just couldn't do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my coaches did a great job, and he said, maybe it's just a matter where you need to thin that area down just a bit so that you can still have those, but maybe instead of trying to base your entire income stream off of them, it's a matter of you serve a few of them. It's really being able to serve those kids with excellence as opposed to trying to fund everything in the office with it. And that was great, and that fit. And so this is an area where I've been able to carve out that, if somebody walked into my office and had no money, but had this huge need, it was really, really hard for me to say no. Okay. I've dealt with my own codependency and all of that sort of thing and work on that from day to day, but it was still really hard to say no. Right. With this area, it is a situation where I can take that notebook that I mentioned to you, be able to hand them that notebook. If they want to work through it, I'm a notary as well. If they want to work through it and all that, great. I can give them something. It does not take a lot from me because I developed the notebook and got it done, and I can still be able to serve that person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really where this fits with that deeper why. I'm also a bit of a nerd in that, I'll get interested in a topic and I'll drill down on that really, really hard. And so there are times where, so for example, I had some folks in here for a probate case yesterday, and we're trying to move financial accounts. So the insurance side of the house actually helped me know more about those accounts, and I was able to give them some pointers as an attorney to make their life better. And so all of that fits with that why. And the fascinating thing is, had I not taken this rarely traveled journey of being of having dual licenses or multiple licenses, I wouldn't know. I have we haven't touched on it, but just similar circumstances. I'm also a VA accredited attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been in a position to actually help somebody with that. But if that rocket ever needs to take off, I've got the launch pad.
So what would be, so for the audience, could you, in case anybody's listening, so what exactly does that mean that you're a VA accredited attorney?
Sure.
And then how would somebody know that they should send somebody to you for that type of work?
So when it comes to being VA accredited as an attorney, it's interesting. When it comes to being a VA accredited attorney, that means that you've been approved by the Veterans Administration to be able to work within their administrative system. So I've got a few folks that we're nibbling around the idea of trying to get their benefits increased. It's been a long time since they've had their disability percentage reviewed and all of that. There are some things that are presumptions now that weren't presumptions whenever they started. And so being a VA accredited attorney means basically I can just step my foot in the door and be able to help those people. It also means that I have done at least a minimal amount of training to be in that system. Now, here's the funny part. I also just applied to be a tax attorney, which is similar in that you are in the U.S. tax administrative system, right? The VA system required all sorts of continuing legal education, long application, and all of that. With the tax system, I just got a kick out of it. It was a one-page application and a $50 fee. So that one has yet to come back. But, had I not embarked on the insurance side of what I do, I would have never found my way into the tax side of what I do. The estate planning crowd was pretty good as far as recommending the VA part. But it's just fascinating if you will open yourself up to similar disciplines. It's amazing what you'll find.
It sounds like a life by design, intentional. So what is your advice for people listening who maybe have this? Because I know at the academy, I mean, you were there to talk about being an estate planning attorney and the importance of it, but we found ourselves as a group in some pretty deep conversations about life. And
Right.
so what would your advice be to anybody listening that maybe has this deep desire to add something to their life, a different focus, like you did with insurance, or to take a different path and to have the faith in themselves
Right.
to do it?
So I I think for all of us in this helping profession, we've got to be able to be authentic. You can't be authentic until you really know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You can't figure out your ideal client profile until you know who you are. You can't figure out the work that you love doing, your passion. It's not about getting paid that you get out of bed. It's about who you're going to be able to help today, what you're going to learn today, and where that road leads, without really knowing who you are. And so, like we talked about at the academy, if you have not put any effort into doing inner healing work and really figuring out who you are, like I mentioned earlier, what positive life templates you were handed as a child, what negative life templates you were handed as a child, being able to know the difference, being able to have boundaries, and then it's really from there. I had a meeting recently with a buddy of mine who's really struggling with some things, and sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to really call out our blessings, our gifts, the things that we have to offer other people. Because one of my favorite quotes over all of 2022 was from Pastor Bill Johnson at Bethel, who said, "We have grace for the battles that God created us for, and consequently, we do not have grace for the battles that we weren't created for." And that really resonated with me because I heard an attorney the other day. He was an estate planning attorney, and he was talking to somebody, and he said, he was talking about himself. And he said he was never given the gene for litigation. Well, I have the gene for litigation, but as I have healed, I don't want to use it. I'm
Mhm.
tired of that. I'm tired of, being in positions to where you're paid to destroy. I want to take that experience and be able to share with people about how that they can leave that legacy of peace. And so if you don't know who you are, if you haven't been through that inner healing journey, take it. I
Mhm.
encourage you to take that leap, if nothing else.
So, real before I'm going to say what I'm going to say, Adam, thank you so much for your comment again. Building an intentional business that brings perspective and planning is so powerful. Kudos to Zale and
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Thank you. So, some people listening might be thinking, or when they hear the recording, what does this have to do with connector elders and senior care and estate planning? Now, you're talking about inner healing, right? If we don't do the work on ourselves, regardless of what profession, right?
Right.
How can we show up as our best selves and be able to serve at our maximum capacity, to serve others at our maximum capacity? That's
Right.
how I hear what you're saying.
Right. You can fake it for a while, but that's not going to go for very long. And especially, in the elder space, there's sometimes you've got to decide, this isn't my battle. This isn't for me. I've had folks in that, maybe there was a lot of lack of healing, and mama typically, or daddy's, a bit toxic, a bit mean. It may be, where they have to be able to have the grace for themselves to say, you know what, I've done all I can do. Or, you
Mhm,
know what, I need to find the professionals that can do this, the
mhm,
professionals that maybe have a different bandwidth. I have seen, especially with our caregiver community, I have seen where we've had really rocky personal relationships inside the family, and
mhm,
that paid caregiver be able to come in and get a different persona, you
mhm,
know, maybe not be treated as bad, or be able to come in and be the real champion
mhm,
for the our older person and not have the same consequences as the
Because they're
family.
not bringing, right? You have these family dynamics where the baggage and
Right.
whatever has built up for years upon years, and things have not been resolved or
Right.
healed in each party. So the caregiver is kind of that fresh
Right.
person.
Right. And it's also, even on that, I've been in situations to where, I needed to help people to see that, mama didn't plan for long-term care. Mama's been poor on spending and maybe hoarding and that sort of thing. And, you know, it's not your job to take mama in. Now, you can choose to do that, but you need to do that. And that's another area where you need to be healed, is you can do that from a perspective of being healed. And you can make that choice, but it needs to be a choice that you make because of whatever decision you're working from. And if there's anybody else in the house, it needs to be their decision as well, as
Mm.
opposed to making that decision from an area of codependency. And now 6 months down the line, we're dealing with elder abuse charges. We're dealing with something in the courts because people didn't handle relationships well. And it's
Or
much
if it
better.
wasn't mutually discussed between, if it's husband and wife, because
Right.
a topic that is not talked about as much as it should be, in my opinion, is that when it's decided that elder mom or dad has moved into the home, the impacts that it has on marriages.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I can pull that string just a little bit. I had a situation where the friend of mine that I had encouraged about whether or not he was moving his mother in, I knew some of the dynamics in the house, and sometimes you've got to be really mindful of that. You've got to be really careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a situation to where you're making a conscious choice, or are you just appeasing some sort of inner critic?
Right. Or people pleasing, or a sense of obligation, or based on being guilted,
Yes.
which will backfire, right? Like if
Yes.
those are the basis for the decision, it will not be a good experience for anyone.
Right.
This is a really powerful conversation, Zale, and clearly from our commenters, they're finding the power in it too. I would love to have you back on as a guest another time, and we'll just keep talking about these topics because they're so important. The legal topics and the insurance that we discussed, but I would say even the tail end of this discussion is even more what people need to start talking about and hearing. So I really appreciate you being my guest today. If people have questions for you, or they feel like they may be a good prospective client for you, they have somebody they want to send to you, how can they connect with you?
Sure. So the easiest way to find me is zaledowlen.com.
Perfect.
That
That's
that
easy
that
enough.
is the clearinghouse for, if it's law, you can get you to the law firm site. If it's insurance, gets you to that site. If it's public speaking, that's something I've been carving out more and more. I just enjoy doing it. It gets you to that. And anytime anybody wants to talk about inner healing, I am always happy to do that. Maybe there's a conference coming up in January. If you'd like, maybe we could put that in the show notes.
Yes, please.
As far now, that is local. They are going to record that, but I don't know if they're going to stream it or not. But that is one of the things that, if you've done nothing else as far as just entering, if you're still asking yourself whether or not you even need to take an inner healing journey, it's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to go ahead and give you kudos, because I have heard you do public speaking. So for the audience and anybody that watches this recording, please consider Zale as a speaker for any events that you have, or perhaps you even bring him into your firm, regardless of type, to meet with your staff. I want to reiterate that the conversations that we had with you, Zale, at the Academy in Nashville left an impact on people.
Great.
They still talk about it. So,
Great. Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
yes, absolutely. Zale, do you have any final words that you'd like to share before we go ahead and log off?
When you're serving people, serve them with authenticity. Do the best you can to get to authenticity. And if you're in a situation to where the group that you're with is not allowing you to do that, fix it.
Straight and to the point.
Yep.
That's great advice. Zale, thank you so much for being with me today. As a reminder, this is the Connect Our Elders podcast, and Connect Our Elders believes that we have a serious gap in education direct to consumers. And so we are on a mission to get education out there about the various levels of care, about ways to fund care, legal resources, financial resources, because we need to start better educating our people and we need to start doing it sooner. So I appreciate everybody that logged in today. And again, I would like to thank our sponsor, Retirement Genius, my good friend Chris Orestes, all things alternative funding solutions to pay for care. So again,
that's a great website. There's some great resources on that site, and I encourage you to check it out.
Thank you so much for saying that. It really is great. Again, Zale, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thanks, Sarah.